Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, say good morning, say hi.
I'm going to say one of those. I'm going to go with good morning, everybody. Welcome to another show. Hope you enjoyed it. I see some familiar faces. Hopefully we'll get some new ones. Start spreading the word. I want to grow that community.
For sure. We really appreciate you all coming out to the watch us live on YouTube or Twitch, because we stream on both. My phone's making noise. So thank you for coming out, chatting with us, catching us live. If you're not catching us live, you can always catch us on YouTube at the Saturday Morning D&D Show, youtube.com/Saturday Morning D&D Show. Or we are a podcast wherever you can find podcasts. So check us out there. Lots of stuff is happening in the world of Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs this week, I feel. Big things too. So where do you want to start?
Well, I mean, we're big fans of Critical Role, and I know that was the big news that we saw kind of drop early in the week, it seemed like, and there has been plenty of discussion. So Amazon was able to negotiate with the Critical Role crew, and it looks like they're going to go ahead and pick up 2 seasons worth of a show, which sounds pretty cool.
So now, is this on top of their Kickstarter season that they were already doing, or is this going to be bundled in together, do you think?
I think it's the rights to stream the original, but then also order more, is the way I understood it. So, which is cool. I mean, that means it could really reach a bigger platform. But other than that, I don't know where they were going to release it. If they were going to put the episodes up on YouTube, or if they were going to put them up on or stream them on Twitch at some point. It was never really clear how or where you would see those once they got them created. But they made, like, what was it, $8 million for their Kickstarter to go ahead and do their first season of a show. So that's pretty good. That's pretty awesome. I'm hoping that means that the animators are getting paid well, and the writers are getting paid well, and they're getting paid well for the properties of the characters themselves. And it's super cool. And then Amazon just comes in and probably throws down like real Amazon money. Like $8 million to Amazon is like you pulling out a dime or a nickel out of your pocket, I'm sure. And, so I wonder, but you know, with success always comes the detractors, right? So I saw a lot of, or a little bit of discussion out there about people being disappointed, or you start to get into those conversations of you're a sellout kind of conversation, or people fearing that we helped with the Kickstarter, but now we're kind of being left behind. Are we not going to get to see the stuff free or whatever? And what do you think of all that conversation?
You know, like, it's difficult and it's weird because objectively, if you really want to like look down to the nitty gritty, Amazon is not the best company. They don't really treat their employees very well. The people that work in the warehouses have not the best pay for a high stress environment kind of a thing. And I have friends that have worked at Amazon in a multitude of things, and a lot of them left because it was just so stressful. So there's that. But at the same time, the people that were very against, like, I can't believe you're working with this company, kind of like they were with Wendy's when the Wendy's one shot came out. It was a weird conversation on Twitter because Amazon owns Twitch. And so they're streaming on Twitch. They're already, you know, hypothetically working and partnered with Amazon in order to make their Twitch streams happen. So to me, it just felt like this was the next step. And it is a platform. And I was talking about it with some friends, and it was kind of like, well, what are our expectations for Critical Role? Are they expected to create their own streaming service to then distribute this thing that they want to create? Like, it's just not, it's not a conceivable idea. So this is the platform that have chosen. And yes, because of the Kickstarter, Amazon is now interested because it made money. So now Amazon's like, well, you obviously made money on Kickstarter. We think we can make money off of you. Now we're going to order some extra seasons and things like that. So I don't know. It just it seemed like the next logical step. And at the end of the day, we get more episodes of this Vox Machina show. Like, and that nobody can be really upset about that. Like, you're getting more episodes. And I really feel that Amazon's not going to dictate how the show needs to be. They're not going to be like weird producers that come in and say, well, you need to add, I don't know, X, Y, and Z to this to make it, you know, I don't know. I really do feel like the Critical Role team is going to maintain their creative control. And that was the only thing that another argument that I saw where people were just kind of like, well, they're going to, like, now the corporate man is going to tell them to like eat hamburgers while they're adventuring, you know? And I'm like, that's just probably not going to happen, because they're smart and they want to keep their ideas, and they want to make sure that it is their property. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited. I'll be honest, I didn't listen to season 1 though. So like, I've read the Critical Role comic and a couple of other things, so I kind of understand the characters, and I'm excited for like an animated show, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. But like, I'm not like super in love with these characters like a lot of other people are. So I also can't comment on, you know, you love something so much and then, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it sells out. I don't know how that would make me feel, but I'm not super attached to these characters, so I'm probably not in a good mindset to say something like that. But I don't know. Thoughts?
Yeah. To me, it's always this weird conversation. I'm probably on the unpopular side of it, that I think people should be able to turn their passion into a business and make that a successful business. If that means partnering with a multi-million-dollar corporation, and that gives you and your family and the creatives that you work with and the people that you hire a fantastic job, I mean, I don't understand how you could even not want that to happen. And then the second thing I like about it is that it's Dungeons and Dragons in cartoon form, which I really miss. And I like, and I hope they're able to bring that nostalgia back, and from just the trailers that we've seen. Like you, I'm not vested in their characters as much as many people are. There's a huge community that just have fallen in love with these characters. And I get that. That's super cool. For me, it's just more about seeing the Dungeons and Dragons in animated form and seeing it done well. I'm hoping it's done well, because I feel like we're in an age again where you can do animated shows seriously. I've seen some really good adult level animated shows that have been great. And I'm hoping for that for this. You know, I'm hoping that it's a real good run at it. Even if it doesn't make it, I'm just hoping that it does. And I hope it leads to more. And if you're on with a company like that, if it's doing well, we might have 8 seasons of Vox Machina at some point, or we might have 10 seasons, depending on what's going on. So I think that's pretty cool. And then if that's pretty successful and does well, maybe we get the live action movie. Maybe we get somebody who takes that material seriously and says, this is Forgotten Realms is a fantastic world to set some cool Game of Thrones style production TV show into it that we could watch. I mean, takes it out of the realm of, oh, this is just a kid's game. This is just a game that people play in their basements. It turns it into, wait, there's a huge audience for this that wants to see more of it and see it taken seriously, not just made fun of, because everything we see in movies that revolves around Dungeons and Dragons is usually a joke. And I get it. I laugh with it. I love Community. They did a comedy episodes about it. You'll see it in some of the other big sitcoms will mention it. If you see it mentioned in movies, it's also usually some part of a joke, and it's funny. But where's the serious take on it? Where's the Game of Thrones style? We're not joking around. We're going to hit you in the gut with this really good stuff. So I'm hoping that this is like a stepping stone to that. So
I don't know. I'm curious about that, because I think you're approaching it from a standpoint that like, Critical Role is Dungeons and Dragons, and and people are invested in the Dungeons and Dragons aspect of Critical Role, and that's what they're going to make more shows off of. And I think it's the opposite. I think like people aren't necessarily invested in the Dungeons and Dragons aspect of it. They're invested in those characters. So I think this will do well. And there will be some fancy producer out there that will say, well, if these guys are making money off of this, I'm going to make money off of this. And I'm going to go grab like a Forgotten Realms story, or I'm going to do this. And then there's all these people that are like, well, I don't like the Forgotten Realms, or I don't like this. They like Critical Role. And although D&D is the underlying current of all of that, it's not, I don't know, Matt Colville said it really good in a live stream or a tweet or something, where they were saying, like, are you hoping for a Dungeons and Dragons movie? And he's like, what does that even mean? Like, I I mean, you could do a Dragonlance movie and take some of those stories from Dragonlance and make a cool fantasy movie, but to make a D&D movie is a really different mindset, and I don't think that's what people want, because you get things like that Community episode. There is a movie called Zero Charisma that I was really excited for that is about people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it kind of turned out the same way as you were saying, like making fun of them and things like that, because Hollywood hasn't really figured out how to make it good.
Right.
So,
well, and most of those are always, like you just mentioned, the big point there is that it's a show or movie or scene or episode about people playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't think Vox Machina has that. I see them as characters living in a fantasy world that's based on things we understand. So there's rangers, there's druids, there's fighters and clerics of gods that we understand. So even though it's not Forgotten Realms per se, I think what I'm hoping is it shows people that they can grab stories like that if they want to take them seriously. There's no reason that if you didn't want to take a Dragonlance story seriously, that you couldn't take the same people that did Game of Thrones and they were really into it and said, you know what, we're going to do this same thing with, you know, Dragonlance, and we're going to make it serious, and we're going to be, the costumes are going to look great, the filming is going to be great, we're going to have big battles, great CGI. There's going to be a compelling story to really grab you from that world. So that's what I hope, instead of like what it's been, like you just had mentioned, trying to show people playing the game. And I don't think we need more of trying to show people playing the game. I just want to see these worlds, like an Eberron. You know, if somebody really took that material seriously, there could be a really cool
4 seasons
fantasy
Eberron.
noir of Eberron. Yeah, I mean, it could be really interesting. So I hope that's what it does. I would have been fine if Netflix would have offered them money. I would have been fine if Hulu would have offered them money because they're going to get to stream. I'd have been fine if Disney Plus had offered them money. And at this point, everybody's, you know, big anti-corporation, big anti-government, and I get that. We're in this weird world of politics and class-based finger pointing and everybody looking at what companies do, and that being a statement of, you know, how they do things and whether we're going to boycott those kinds of services. And I don't know, I just want to see a cool show that I can wake up on a Saturday morning, like a Saturday morning D&D show, and just watch a fun show and then go off and do my thing for the rest of the day. I don't want to have to think about the political implications of, I'm saying that word wrong, of, you know, who's the production company behind it or who funded something like that. I just want to enjoy the content, the creativeness of it. Yeah. So,
well, there you go.
But I think I'm the unpopular one. I think I'm on that unpopular one. So I saw that. I think for them, it's cool that they've created this company. They're voice actors who are turning it into a production company. So that's very cool. I can't wait. And I think I saw that who's the CEO of their company? It's Travis, right?
I don't know.
I saw something in a tweet that said, you know, Travis did a really good job with this, our CEO. And I thought, oh, you know, I didn't even realize who was what within that company. So I mean, it's a real company. It's not just, you know, 6 people playing Dungeons and Dragons anymore on a Thursday night. So that's pretty cool.
They've evolved a lot, and I wish them the most success. I think it'll be really cool. And this is obviously gonna, I mean, it'll spark other things, and who knows, maybe we'll get an animated show for season 2 of Critical Role, or Critical Role the musical, you know, and people will be staging it all across the nation. It'll be great.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I do think that they should figure out logistically is those who did help with the Kickstarter, because I believe me and you helped with the Kickstarter. If you weren't an Amazon member, would you still be able to see the show? And I know that was one concern. I'm almost positive that they're going to make sure that anybody that helped with the Kickstarter is definitely going to be able to see the episodes that they helped kickstart for sure. I wonder if it's a show that they'll put on for free or as a promotion to get Amazon or Amazon Prime Video or any of that stuff. But if not, that is one concern to think about, and a legitimate one to talk about, to say, well, if I'm not an Amazon because I like I only choose one of the services, and I love Netflix is the one I love and that's the one I pay, but I'm not gonna be able to see it now because this one's on Amazon. That's definitely a conversation worth having, I think, amongst people, because how do you get to the widest range audience that you can when your audience is fractured between all these different streaming services? So,
and
we'll have to see.
That's a whole other thing about streaming services in
I mean,
general.
Critical Role can't fix that. Yeah,
but yeah, the first season will be free for Kickstarter backers. So it whether that's like free on Amazon or free they distribute it, like I wouldn't worry about that. So that's definitely
the only other thing, not to keep going after, I almost wish it was the new characters that they were building the animation on versus their first campaign characters. Because like for me, I've enjoyed campaign 2 characters way more than I enjoyed campaign 1 characters.
And I think you're in the minority of that.
Oh,
because everybody I talk to, they love season 1 and season 2 has been kind of like, but I'm right there with you. I didn't get attracted to season 1. I just kind of didn't like it. And season 2, I was like, okay, I can start. They're at level 1. Or level 2, I think they started. And it's like, okay, we're going to start here. And I've enjoyed that a lot more. But that's the story I have been following / I was going to say grew up with, but I didn't grow up with it. But like, that's the story that I've been following, as opposed to everybody else I know is like, oh my gosh, I got into D&D because I was listening to Critical Role. So yeah, I don't know.
And it's a prequel to what they've streamed as the campaign, right? These are the characters before 8th or 9th level.
I have no idea.
In the timeline, I think, is what they're doing. I thought they were doing stories before the show had kicked off on Twitch. So
I don't know.
Very interesting. Well, if any of you out there in chat know or have more information, definitely tell us in chat. Or if you go to the YouTube video and you're listening to this after the fact, after Saturday morning, let us know all that cool information, because I know there's so many people that love to dive into this stuff and they know that the ins and outs and the nitty gritty of all the details. So that was one big news thing. What else did you think happened? There was another big one.
Yeah, well, we got this ridiculous Unearthed Arcana variant everything. And it sparked a lot of, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like ability score improvements. You can change things, or during, when you get an ability score improvement, you can change a proficiency, like certain classes getting cantrips that didn't get cantrips before, like really, really trying to fix the ranger and a bunch of stuff going on there. A new Eldritch Invocation, or not Eldritch Invocation, new pact option, I think. For Warlock about an amulet, and like, yeah, there was just, I'm looking at the PDF right now, but there's so much going on that, I don't know. I was wondering, is this how they're reinvigorating the game? Like, we're not necessarily going to keep adding, subclasses, but we will be like, this is how we drastically change, up how people play. And it seemed like they got a lot of feedback that players, character classes like sorcerers or even, sorry, let me back up. So it seems like they got feedback that players were upset that they were getting shoehorned into a position. Like, I chose a spell and that spell just isn't working out. But I can't change anything until I level. Or I took a feat and that feat just is not working out and I can't change that ever, kind of a thing. And they made it so that you could kind of like, as you level up, maybe change your proficiencies or something like that, because what you started with isn't actually helping out the campaign. And it just seems that it's a more fluid way of playing D&D where your character kind of changes with the campaign as opposed to you're locked into this is what I want. I wonder how this is going to change Adventure League now that I think about it. But I don't know. Lots of really cool options there, and I really like what they did. And a lot of people are saying, is this going to be the Player's Handbook 2 or D&D 5.5? Like, are they changing all this stuff? And I thought that was interesting that people were talking about that, because it is sweeping changes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think from what I've heard, there was definitely 3 different videos that I saw. There might have been more of Jeremy kind of going over some of the stuff and some of the ideas behind it. And all of it sounded like valid reasons you would want to maybe go back and look at a few things. He definitely really made it clear in a couple of those videos that once this is released, these will only ever be optional rules, just like Xanathar's Guide is optional, just like any of those are all optional. So I don't ever see this as being like Player's Handbook version 2, or I doubt they would ever go to, we're going to call this Dungeons & Dragons 5.0 1.5. I don't think they would ever let that happen as much as they could. We may call it that. But I think it will be in an optional book where it brings in a bunch of variant rules. And within that book, we might get a lot of different variant classes, new classes, and things, but all stuff that your dungeon master can decide for this campaign. Does it make sense that we do these things in this campaign? And he also made it a point to say, you don't only, as a dungeon master or as a group deciding kind of the rules we want to play within the campaign, you can take some and leave some out too. It's not just like, well, we're going to do Xanathar's Guide, but now you have to take it as a whole. And you might not like something in Xanathar's Guide that doesn't work out. You can say, well, I'm going to allow Xanathar's Guide in the campaign, but I want to make sure we don't use this thing because that doesn't really fit with what we're doing.
Or like, I don't like that paladins get cantrips in these variant things. So we're going to say, you know, yes, you can use the ranger changes, but like the paladin spellcasting changes, those are, you know, and you can kind of pick and stuff. But it made me think about character creation and like you select human or variant human. Are we going to get to the point on D&D Beyond where you select monk or variant monk, and then you have to like pick and choose and puzzle piece your character together? It's interesting to me, and I think there's a lot of potential to create, like we were talking about all those different combinations either last week or a couple weeks ago of, you know, I want to take this monk and I'm going to do and make a really unique character. Now with these variant things, I feel like you could even puzzle piece more, and it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be really interesting.
I think what they're doing too is a lot of reflective look at their design, and they're realizing the things that resonate with players the most is when they have choices to make at certain parts, certain increments of their leveling. That's why I think the Warlock stands out. That's why I think the Battlemaster Fighter stands out. That's why I think Wizard can stand out. All these ones where you're starting to get fine-tuned options at third level. You get you pick one of two options at, you know, fifth level, or from a list of 7, pick one of these that you get at 8, and then when you get to 10th, you'll get to pick another one of these. And those style characters, I think, are the popular ones, where the ones that are just set, okay, third level, this is your ability, fifth level, this is your ability, and ninth level, this is your ability. People aren't feeling the choice there. They're just given it. And I think they're starting to really try to put more of that choice back in. If you look at the PDF, which is a UA article right now, they list a lot of that stuff as either an enhancement or an addition or as something that can be swapped out type thing. So they really looked at 3 different ways of giving you options, and those options work in very different ways. They weren't all the same type. They weren't all replace this ability with that ability, or they weren't all let's change how this worked and make it a little bit better, or here's a whole brand new thing for you to try out. They put a big mix in there of all of them. So I can't imagine trying to play test this at the moment, because there's just so much there, and it would take some time to go through and try to play test all that out, if all those different combinations. On the whole, from what I've seen in the community, it feels like these options definitely make the characters more powerful, right? It feels like it empowers the characters and the players even more than what the original set does. And I know the people in my campaign were begging our DM that they wanted to use some of these for their classes, because they'd take a look at some of these and they were like, I want that at my class, you know, and they were all about trying to talk our dungeon master into letting them do it. So I think it's interesting. I think it's great. It's another UA article. We've been swamped. We've been blasted with UA articles. I think that's a sign that in 2020, we're getting a big book of a very Xanathar's Guide book, because to me, Xanathar's Guide from was it 2018 or 2019, whatever year it was released in, gave us a lot of options that we really wanted. A lot of choices, a lot of new spells, new magic item stuff, new class, subclass stuff, new all of this stuff. And that's kind of the things that I think the community's been aching for. But we've had this discussion again before. If you add this on top of that, and you add all those classes they've talked about in those UA articles, where do you hit that tipping point of, I'm a brand new person coming to your game that you tell me is really super awesome, but I'm super overwhelmed because you just put 5 books in front of me to show me all these options, and I have character creation goes to 2 hours to create a character at this point because you're trying to figure out all your options and stuff. So where's that tipping point as it becomes too complex?
And I don't know. We've already answered that question. So it's like, we bring it up again, but like, it's up to the dungeon master to be like, no, you can just use this book. Or it's up to the dungeon master to say, oh, you've never played an RPG before? Here, I made a character for you. Let's see if you like it. And then you can take the book home and read it and then come back, kind of a thing like that. So it's just up to the dungeon master to not make it complex, you know?
Right.
But I will say that like Pathfinder intimidates me. And I was like, okay. So, what was I saying? I can't even remember.
You're intimidated by Pathfinder, and that was really the question I was going to go to. Yeah, at what point does Jordan become overwhelmed with options? There's a point.
Yeah, but if somebody came and said, "I want to run a Pathfinder 2 game for you," and I would say, where can I start? And they, you know, like, here's a book, here's this, and I'd be like, you know what? I want to play a spellcaster. Just give me a wizard. And if somebody who knew the system just handed me that, that would be, you know, choice. But it's a conversation you need to have with somebody who's a little more experienced with the game, I guess.
Right.
So,
but it's, and I mostly agree, but I don't think it's always the DM's job, and I'm seeing it in chat, to take care of this problem. The developers can introduce that problem if they continue. If they put out 4 books of classes last year, that makes it harder and harder on the DM. I get that the DM can be the one that helps smooth this along, but at some point, if the company's just throwing tons of content out, we get into the 3.5 problem, which is what the complaint was, is there was too many options and it was too complicated for people to pick up.
Well, what's the problem of limiting, though? Like, I don't understand that argument, because you can just say, we're only going to use these 2 books. You know, 4th edition had like thousands of different powers that you could swap in and out and do all this other stuff with. And and they were releasing magazines that had extra powers in them. And if you really wanted to, you could pull from everything. And I don't know, it's just up to somebody saying, no, we're only gonna, I don't know, let's think about 5th edition. And I've ran games where somebody's like, hey, can I play this UA article this? And I can say, no, you have to play something from the player's handbook. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
but and that's the reason we have different versions, right? Or we would still be on 3.5. It got too complicated. They created 4, then 4 got pretty bloated and wasn't well received. Then they created 5, which what they do with 5? They made it simpler than 4. Yes. So it's always gone back to trying to make it simpler. So complexity doesn't always,
but I think,
get the game to be the way they want it to be.
That's a different conversation entirely, because it gets to a certain point where they just need to hit reset to thus sell more books. That's more of a marketing thing, as opposed to, well, this just got a little too big. I don't know. Like, we want to like revise it, but I don't know. That's my take on that, I guess. Like, but then I say that possible. And Pathfinder kind of sold itself as being, you know, we're never going to do this. And then they turned around and made Pathfinder 2, which surprised everybody. So, but I feel like that's the, well, we sold a bunch of books. Now, if we want to sell more books, we kind of have to like make a new version, and hopefully people will enjoy it. And I don't know. But.
And I'm also coming from experience in playing role-playing games that are very complex. Just the one book you get, right? So like if you were to play Gary Gygax's next game after Dungeons & Dragons, when he left TSR and he couldn't write Dungeons & Dragons anymore, he created Dangerous Journeys. If you try to create a character in that, it takes you 4 hours to create a Dangerous Journeys character. It's one book. There are no more books for you to buy, but it's so complicated, it never caught on. So my only point is that if they keep adding complexity, so if they keep adding classes and those add new mechanics, which add new complexity to the game, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're at this great point, and I love all this stuff. But I know there's a tipping point of complexity where it starts to turn people off. Like they just want a game that becomes too complex, then they start maybe not playing it. But I don't know. That's, we see the marketing and how it works. We've seen the cycles of 8 years or so, and then the next version comes out. We played the 3 versions. You played the 3 versions of Dungeons and Dragons. Which one was more complex? 3, 5, 4, or 5th?
I never played 3.5. I played 2nd edition, 4th, and 5th.
Yeah.
And yes, 5th edition is just nice and things, but I don't know, we're talking in circles at this point, but like you keep saying, well, they're going to make it more complex. And I'm like, but then you can still always just say we're only going to use the PHB. Like,
true.
I don't know, but that's me.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you. I like it. So it's fun. And I think that's exactly what that UA generated in the community, was the exact thing that we're talking about. People talking, like in circles, people coming at it from different angles. Everybody had opinions. Some people thought it was OP. Some people thought it wasn't. Some people were speculating on when we might see something like this. What kind of book might it be in? Would it come in with a campaign setting style book, or would it just be a rules book, kind of like Xanathar's was, is more of a rules book, wasn't really campaign specific. So it's all very interesting to see, and I'm sure they'll do a survey at some point for feedback. But it does sound, the right thing is where they're going to keep it optional. And I think that's the big thing, because they're keeping it optional. Your solution works perfectly. But if they ever not make it optional, that changes the argument too.
Yeah, and I don't think they will.
The discussion,
like,
I guess.
they're never going to say
we like to
you have to use crafting item rules. And it's like, well, I mean, no, I don't.
And you even mentioned, I know I don't want to keep going over, Adventure League.
Yeah.
Will obviously be different. And if Adventure League allows this, then that does add in the complexity no matter what the GM says.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I'm super happy for it, because I know me and you love to make characters, and the more options we can get and the more things we can tweak while we're playing those characters, the more we love it. Like, I love all that kind of stuff. I love the stuff that, like, the Artificer to me was one of the perfect classes, because not only did it give us options, but it also gave us narrative things that we could do to really say, oh, my thing that I create could look like anything. So I get like narrative freedom, but I also get option freedom, which was really cool. I wish all the classes were built on that premise. Give me mechanical freedom to choose things, and give me narrative freedom to do things too with some of those things. Really things that are meant to be narratively different. That's my favorite. I love the Artificer class so much. Cool. I can't wait to see it officially.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Speaking of that,
have you seen the official? Soon. Yeah. Like next week? No, week after?
19th, right? So 10 days?
Yeah, 19th. So it not next week, but the week after, we'll finally get our Eberron book to be able to take a look at it. So that'd be cool. That will be super cool.
And then real quick, they made a Clue board game.
Yeah, I saw
which
this
is like a Dungeons and Dragons Clue, and that was weird and funny. So if you ever wanted to play Clue but set in the world of Forgotten Realms, then there you go. It's a whodunit. That was just a weird thing. I wonder who talked to them about that. Where they
this feels like back in the 80s. This reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons starts to get popular. So now everybody wants to get a Dungeons and Dragons version of something. Yeah. So we got a Dungeons and Dragons Wendy's meal, or we got a Dungeons and Dragons Clue board game. We might get a Dungeons and Dragon Monopoly game or whatever. Yeah. Because all of a sudden people they're like, oh, it's all popular. There's lots of people out there that like it. But what made me laugh about this is that you had just done the play, which immediately popped it up into my head. So I'm like, you should go back to that director and you should say, hey, can we do the Clue but the Baldur's Gate version now? So that would be super fun for them to go through. I think it would be interesting, and I think it goes on sale pretty soon. I think it might have even already been in the Amazon store when I looked it up, and I saw that Greg Tito had showed the box up in his show too when you're watching D&D News, so it was pretty funny. I don't know how much it'll be. I liked Clue, the original game. I wonder if the same mechanics would probably work. So you've got like named characters. You're trying to figure out who did it in what room with what weapon, and there's clues going around. And so that's always a fun mechanical game. And Clue was a game I liked playing with a group of people. It was always really fun playing with a group of friends. I just always enjoyed it. Like Monopoly was always like the family game, like just me and the family members would play. But Clue was always the game for me and friends and spouses would play. Like I wouldn't break out Monopoly for that group. I'd break out Clue for that group.
Right. And I didn't have
Ticket to Ride or something.
Friends, so I played Clue by myself.
Oh no.
And it was so much fun. Just me, and I'd always win because I'd figure out who was the murderer because I was playing by myself.
it sounds like maybe we should grab this, and then at Gen Con we should have a Clue board game night, and we'll get some friends for Jordan.
Yay, friends!
But that was about it that I saw from news, unless anybody else saw anything out there. Again, we're at the end of the year, but it was big.
Yeah. I mean, that UA article was huge. So go check it out.
I'm still going through it.
Yeah.
I'm still looking through it. Like with the wizard being able to change the cantrip, that was a big thing for me. I've had that. I ran into that problem that you mentioned with, I took Bonfire from Xanathar's Guide, not realizing, totally missing that it's a cantrip that requires concentration to keep up. And it only started to dawn on me as I'm 5th and 6th level into my wizard, and I want to throw off a polymorph, or I want to throw off something else, but damn it, I'm using this. The only damaging cantrip I took was Bonfire. I didn't take anything else. Realizing, oh my God, I should switch this out. So now I'm looking at my list, and I don't get a 5th cantrip until, I don't even know what it is, like 9th or 10th level before I can finally pick another cantrip. I started thinking of ways to get around it. Like I was looking at, maybe I'll take Magic Initiate at 8 so that I could get a different cantrip, all these different things. And my DM even was nice enough, said, if you really are unhappy with it, you want to change it, you can. And that really should be the lesson from that too. If you don't feel like there's something in your character that's working well, talk to your dungeon master. Just say, hey, I thought I wanted this.
Yeah.
We've been playing for a couple months now, and I'm realizing it doesn't really fit with what I want. Can we change it? Can we go back? Because the dungeon master is normally going to want you just to be happy and have fun with your character. They're very rarely going to say, no, you made that choice back, 6 months ago, you're staying with it. So just talk to your dungeon master if you're running into that problem.
In the immortal words of Celeste Conowitch, we all think Friends is going to be that really great cantrip, and then it never is. and we regret taking Friends. So,
yeah. But other than that, we move on to our next little shoehorned in segment that Lucian loves, and I'm not sure if Jordan loves it yet, but I'm just keep thinking if we do it long enough, he'll love it eventually. We're calling it Bardic Inspiration in our notes, or Appendix D, which is always the one I like too. So this week was the interesting week where I went the whole week and I didn't really come up with another campaign idea. Sometimes happens, right? But I thought what I would use this segment for is a flashback or a callback to an inspirational idea I had many, many months ago, almost about the same time last year, about this time, because the way the weather was changing. I had this idea about The Mist, which was the movie by Stephen King, and how would that look if you played a Dungeons and Dragons game or a one-shot based on that. So I used in mind, when I did it, I used the town of Tribor. I used the map that came out of Storm King's Thunder, and I set it up, and I had the players, and I had them, they were traveling through, but they stopped off in Tribor on their way to go wherever they were going to go. And then you kick off the event that night as the mist rolls in and things start to happen. I created custom creatures that were in the mist. And the thing that I liked about this idea, for those of you looking for inspiration, the mist kind of nullifies all those people taking those character races to get their night vision so that they can see 60 feet out. But with the mist, you can decide how far anybody can see. You can really control vision. You want to make for a fun game, drop the vision that anybody can see down to about 20-ish feet and see how that really changes the game and the mechanics of what's going on when all of a sudden they can't see at those long ranges. I don't think it's something you want to do all the time, but I think it's fun to introduce into your campaign. And then I really like the spookiness of, think of things like the old movie The Fog, or Mist from Stephen King, or any of those ones where they just have this ominous kind of weather effect roll in, limits vision, makes you claustrophobic, and then monsters are in taking you and creating images or messing with your mind or killing people or whatever's going on, and add that into a Dungeons and Dragons episode, which for you I think was just really fun. So that was my Bardic inspiration that I thought I would bring back up against, because sometimes you go a whole week and there wasn't anything that inspired you for a new Dungeons and Dragons episode. So sometimes you kind of lean back on some of those old things you've tried. So that one I've tried and ran, and it was fun. What about you, Jordan? What did you come up with this week?
The way you were talking, it made me think of Alfred Hitchcock's Birds. And I think it's in Tome of Beasts. There is a fire-breathing goose, and I hate geese. They live around our area, and they bite at you, and they like hiss, and I just hate how evil they are. They really do guards the gates of hell. And I was like, that would be a really fun campaign to do Alfred Hitchcock's Birds, only with these fire-breathing geese that like run around and cause problems. But no, I also kind of was thinking back to stuff that I've done in the past, because I wasn't super inspired by anything particularly this week, but got me thinking about making magic items that makes your party laugh. And I've heard of people doing this where, you know, my D&D group really likes World of Warcraft, so they introduce magical items that are blatantly from the world of World of Warcraft, because everybody gets the inside joke and it's fun. Yeah. And I did this a while back with Super Mario Brothers, and I wanted to create a dungeon that revolved around Super Mario Brothers. So there were mushrooms that you could eat that gave you the enlarge spell, or there was weird flowers that you could breathe into and cast burning hand stars that would, you know, make you invincible or really fast or something like that. And so creating silly themed magic items can be a really fun way to, I don't know. There are those inside jokes at a table, and I think nurturing those it's just really fun. So I don't know. That was my bardic inspiration.
I liked it. And I think what I also like about that idea is the idea that you know your group, like you knew that this group would get that. And that is something that I think all of us DMs always need to remind ourselves, is to be tuned into our groups, remembering what they like, remembering the things that they're into, remembering the things that we can bring into the game that's going to get that aha moment or that laughing moment or that really shocking moment from the group we're playing with. Even though if I play with a different group on Thursday night, they might have a different set of things. But as dungeon masters, we're all staying in tune with the groups that we're playing with, which I think is really good. Because I think if you hear of a story where a group has not gone well, or if you listen to anybody that says, I played Dungeons and Dragons and it was terrible, I think it always comes down to a dungeon master not being in tune with the group. And so doing things that maybe they like, but maybe their group doesn't like, right? So all friction seems to come from this idea of either the group doesn't have the same idea the dungeon master has, and the dungeon master is not really thinking about what the group wants to do. So the friction starts, and that's where the bad things go. So if you could just practice that ability of, you know, be in tune with your group, know what they like, you know, play to their funny bone, or play to their strengths, or play to their likes, and do the stuff that you like too. Like find the same thing where they coincide. If you're playing with a bunch of marine biologists and you're going to throw in an awesome, you know, salt marsh campaign, knowing that they're going to love it because they're all marine biologists, that's the perfect fit right there. You know, don't force them into the desert unless you think they're really going to enjoy that for some reason. So I think that's great. I think that's a great inspiration. So if you guys have your inspirations, what inspired you this week, or if you're going to try one of our ideas, let us know in chat. Tell us how it went. See if you added it to your group. I'm telling you, try the mist. Throw that at your group. I think they'll like it. They'll be super going to be spooky, and you can play spooky music, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. Other than that, we typically jump over to what we did in Dungeons and Dragons. I only had a little bit, so I'm thinking I'm going to give Jordan the floor here. He had a couple of games.
Yeah. And then I'm level 5. I learned Fireball.
Yay.
My sorcerer learned Fireball. I'm very excited. We're in the home stretch of Acquisitions Incorporated. It has been so much fun, and there are all of these, I was going to say loose ends, but just all of these all these different paths that we could take. And I want to know everything. And I was actually talking to my dungeon master that I'm like, I think I want to run this at some point. Like, even playing through it, it just feels like there's so much more there. And I'm like, I feel like I could run this and get a really a lot of enjoyment out of running it, because it has been just a really fun adventure. So we are currently like we got an airship from the home office. So now we have this airship that we're like flying around in. We're outfitting our house that we bought with like a laser and a moat, and we're making it all awesome. And it's just been a lot of fun. So really curious about the end of this, and we'll go till level 6, I think. So we're in the final stretch of the adventure. It's been a lot of fun. I had a really interesting Ghosts of Saltmarsh game. And I don't think my players know this yet, and they're in chat, so they're watching. I made up everything on the spot, and I have never done that as a dungeon master before, but they were in a forest, and I knew that I had to get them back to town, but the direction I thought they were going to go, they kind of went in a different direction, and so they investigated these zombies that have been washing up on shore, and they got a boat, and the boat took them out there, and they killed this thing. And then as they were on the boat, I realized, I'm like, well, we've got like an hour and a half left, and I don't really have any content. So I started flipping through the book, and I rolled on some random tables, and they found an island. And then using the random tables, I rolled what's on the island. And then I rolled why are they searching the island? And we went through this whole process where they found magic items. They ended up battling vampires. There were bullywugs that they realized they used some cool minor illusion and some awesome deception checks to make them think that they were the bullywugs deity or something. And so they were just like bowing down and worshiping the bullywugs, or the bullywugs were worshiping them. Sorry. But it was a very rewarding night of Dungeons and Dragons, because I've never really done that, where I'm like, let's just roll and, oh yeah, you find an island and it's cool. But we just played along with it. Everybody had a lot of fun, and they're very excited as to where it's going to keep going. And yeah, we'll see what happens this Wednesday. So, but yeah,
cool.
I made everything up on the spot. It was really fun. And I just kind of, thank you for random roll tables and how much I enjoy random roll tables. But it reminded me of, there was a video I made a long time ago, where I'm like, if your players are rolling up characters, you as the dungeon master can take the dungeon master's guide, and there are tables in there to roll up adventures, and you literally could roll up an evening of D&D super easy with a villain and a plot and where they're going, and then you just drop in some monsters and some combats and puzzles, and it runs itself. So yeah, it's a really good tool that I don't think a lot of people utilize the dungeon master's guide. Aside from magic items, they like the magic items, but like there's a lot of really good tables in there for coming up with ideas if you feel stuck. So
yeah, I think those would be cool to have on the DM screen too. So you just have them right there, you're ready to go, and you're like, oh, they're having a conversation amongst each other, thinking about what they're going to do. I'm going to roll some stuff here while they're doing that. And it's right there on your screen. They don't even know you're flipping through a book or anything. So it'd be great.
No, it's fun.
It's good.
And then Shadowfell Adventures, we didn't play last week, but we're going to play tomorrow, I think. I have 2 people that haven't responded yet, but hopefully they will. And that should be really fun. We're just getting back to regularly playing in the Shadowfell, and it's been a lot of fun. So. But what did you do in your short week of gaming?
Yeah. Well, I had a big appointment that I was going on for Tuesday morning, super early. So I knew I couldn't play Dungeons and Dragons till midnight or more on Monday. So we rescheduled for this coming up Monday, where we'll kick back off in the Seeking Revenor campaign. Everybody's excited to get back to it. We stopped at a really fun kind of cliffhanger spot for that one. We'll swing back around. Although any of you that are going back and watching some of those, for I don't know what's been going on, but just like this morning, some of those longer streams keep having hiccups in them, or something happens and the mic doesn't come back, or the cameras don't come back. And I'm going to keep working on those to try to get a much smoother experience on that if I can. So struggle through it if you can, because I think the content's still pretty good. But we did get to play Wednesday night Tomb Annihilation, and I just want to second or 100,000% agree with you on, I'm playing an adventure and I'm having so much fun. And I'm also thinking about, man, I want to run this now. Not because I don't think the person that's running is not doing a good job. Nothing like that at all. It's so much fun. Now I want to do it because I want to inject my fun into it. I want to bring that fun to another group too, because I'm like, oh, I've played through it now I have these really cool ideas that I could add something to this part or that part, or I could do something else. And for two of them are that way. I mean, LB's running a really good Descent into Avernus one. And after we ran the first parts of that, it made me think, oh, I really want to run this for a group of players and see how they do these things. And I get to kind of manipulate what's going on, and it'd be fun to do these different things. But same with Tomb of Annihilation. I mean, I've said it 100 times now. I'll probably say it 100 more times. It's become my favorite module at the moment. And we just had a really tough fight where we didn't think we were going to survive. And it was a perfect kind of storm of, we only got like one round of combat in before the session ended last week. And at the end of that, we had just gotten pretty beat on. We didn't know all the stuff that was going on. We didn't understand what was happening to us because it just sprung on us very quickly. And it felt dire. It felt like, oh my God, this could be it. And we stopped. So we go all week long thinking about, what am I going to do when the turn comes up, right? So a couple of things that kind of triggered for me is, one, sometimes I felt a little guilty, or from a dungeon master standpoint, you always think about, well, your players are doing things and making decisions in 6-second increments. They're trying to play characters who are making snap judgments, right, really quickly in the heat of the moment. And sometimes you don't want them to spend an hour thinking about what they're going to do in the next 6 seconds, right? Mm-hmm. So you sometimes encourage them, come on, guys, we got to keep this moving. There's a lot going on. You can't just, spend your whole time trying to figure it out. And so I started thinking about that from a player side, because here I am, my wizard. I'm trying to think about what I'm going to do when we start up in this session again on Wednesday. And what am I going to do? How am I going to cast this? And how am I going to cast that? And I started saying to myself, oh, should I not be doing that? Because my character I'm playing only has 6 seconds. But then I remembered, my character has an 18th intelligence. I have nowhere near an 18th intelligence. The only way I can simulate an 18 intelligence is to give me a week to think about what I should do. So that was my justification for continuing to think about how I should tackle this huge problem. And so all week long, I'm thinking, okay, when we start up, this is the spell I'm going to throw, and that's going to do this and this and this and this. And I wasn't talking to any other players. I was just thinking about it. So there's legendary actions going on. There's environmental things happening. There's invisibility, so we can't see what's happening. There's an anti-magic field, so our spells are getting shut down and abilities are getting, all this stuff's happening in this fight. And we had a really good time. We found our way around it. We found where the edges of the magic field were. We found out how to find something that was invisible, coming up with cool and fun ideas. And we just had this spectacular fight. I mean, we all loved it. We all had a great time. I think the Dungeon Master loved it as much as we did, because it went long enough that the Dungeon Master didn't feel let down, that the creature didn't challenge us. Mm-hmm. But it also didn't result in a TPK. It didn't result, it just resulted in one of those things that we'll talk about. And I'm being very opaque about it, or I'm being very not much details, because I don't want to give away one of the cool encounters that's in Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah. So
if you're playing that, you'll eventually probably run into this, and your group will have to deal with it. But it also reminded me that even though I thought the whole week about what are we going to do to get our party out of this before we all die? It was even to the point where I thought, well, I'm the only one outside of the room. I was the only one that hadn't stepped in yet. Should I just run for it? And then we could get a new group of party members. We can figure out one person will survive. It doesn't need to be a total, no, I should go in and I should do this. But then I also got reminded after we played this session, I don't have to think about the way for our party to survive, because there's 5 other players in our party, or there's 4 other players in our party, and they all had cool ideas. Mm-hmm. And all I had to do was think of a coolish idea. And with all of our cool ideas coming together, we were able to overcome it. So I didn't have to put the worry and the strain on myself. How do I get us out of this? When I should just trust my group is going to come up with some really cool and fun ideas. So it was really good. From a DM standpoint, the thing that I really want to encourage people to do is add environmental effects to the battlefields where your people are having fights. We've talked about that before. Add in elements every now and then that mixes up or changes the meta that your group has devised, right? We're a melee-centric group, so we like to go in and beat up on things. And so we have kind of one plan, which is, hit it with our forehead, just do a headbutt. And that's how we deal with things. And this challenged us. This said, that's not going to work. it was 20 feet up in the air. So all of a sudden we had to figure out how are we going to get up there. We can't see it. There's other things happening. Spells and abilities aren't working. Magic items are shutting down left and right. It was a really fun thing. And I bet of the whole adventure, it'll be the one battle that we remember 10 years from now versus any of the other battles that we had already in this tomb. That's going to be the one that we all talk about and kind of have our camaraderie about, is going to be this battle, because it was really fun and engaging. And it made you think of how to do things differently. Use your character. Like, what do I do as a wizard when my magic is shut down? Mm-hmm. That's a big different way to play all of a sudden than everything. So we had a really good time in it. I encourage you, if you haven't played Tomb of Annihilation, find a dungeon master that's willing to run it for you. I still think at some point I want to run it myself, just because I loved the jungle adventure. I loved the city exploration. I loved the tomb dive. I love the themes that are going on in it. And I would love to be kind of in control of some of those options. Now that I've seen, because I've watched it played by Adam Kobol's group. I played it once and got halfway through it before that campaign stopped. And now we're in the second campaign where I'm playing through it, and I'm probably going to end up finishing it, or we're going to die trying. And even though I knew that stuff, I'm still having fun because the dungeon master is able to change a few things that each one of them have been different, right? So it hasn't always been the same. It hasn't always worked out the same. I didn't know all the things that were going to happen. I don't know all the secrets. And it's been super fun. So I definitely recommend it. Can't wait to play it again next Wednesday to see where we're at. We've got to be getting pretty close to hitting level 10, which is an exciting area as a player. Take the DM hat off. It's always fun to get your character that high of a level. That area where you start to get to 10, 11, 12, you really start to feel like this character is very different than it was in 1, 2s, and 3s levels. Because you've lived with that character for so long. So there's a lot of fun in that. So if you can get your group to those levels and not just like me, stop a campaign and start a new one all the time, which is what I do all the time, definitely recommend it. Let your characters get some of those high level characters to play around with. I think they're super fun. Other than that, that was the really cool. Now, have you played in Tomb of Annihilation for anybody yet? For you? Has anybody read it?
That's about it. But I will, and I do. I agree. I really like it. Tomb of Annihilation and Out of the Abyss are the two adventures that I really want to run at some point in my D&D career.
So, what is your favorite module then of all the ones released by Wizards of the Coast? I'm on record now saying Tomb of Annihilation is my favorite, and I think the best. What is your favorite and the best, or is those two different things?
Those are two different things. The best one I'd have to really think about, but my favorite is Out of the Abyss. I like I'm trying to think of why I like it. I like the exploration of it. It does have some problems. There's issues with Out of the Abyss because it's an earlier one that they wrote, but I like the random encounters, the Drow, the Underdark, just this weird world to explore. I think it's really cool, and I don't know, it just resonated with me when I first read it, and that's something that I want to run really bad is awesome. Out of the Abyss. Yeah.
Well, also thanks for the raid from Variant Rolls, who came over and raided us with 12 people. I was in my monologue during all of that when it happened. So thank you for swinging by and seeing us on our Saturday morning D&D show. I always hate this because it's only an hour show, and Jordan always makes sure we stop at the hour. He never lets us go longer. I
got to go play D&D. I got to eat dinner or eat lunch, go to D&D. That's what's got to happen.
That has to happen.
That is our show, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry again about the hiccups on YouTube. My connection is not the best today, and we had problems last week as well. So I don't know, say la vie. I don't know, reset my router or something.
I think we may have been cursed by a coven. Maybe we've upset a hag,
some hags
or two.
I don't know,
and they're messing with us.
It's weird. But we appreciate you watching us live, catching us later on YouTube, or listening to the podcast. If you do either of those, consider sharing the show with your friends and consider leaving us reviews or comments on YouTube and things like that. We really appreciate it. It helps the show grow, helps us get out there, and that's what we'd like to have happen. So yeah.
And the YouTube channel's pushing. It's getting close to that 1,000-point mark, which is going to allow us to do some cool stuff. So, tell your friends and family members, come out to the Saturday Morning D&D show and support the show, but also just go on YouTube and help us out, and we can do a lot more cool stuff for you guys.
Absolutely. We will see you next week with another episode of the Saturday Morning D&D show. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.